The auditorium at Howard University was filled with people from all walks of life: students, journalists, politicians, and activists. Cameras were everywhere. Every major news network was present: CNN, Fox News, BBC, Al Jazeera. The air was buzzing with excitement and a strange kind of tension. Everyone knew something big might happen tonight. It wasn't just another political debate. It was being called a raw conversation, a face-to-face showdown between former President Donald Trump and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The organizers had promised no scripts, no filters, and no safe topics. Just two powerful figures sitting across from each other, ready to challenge, question, and maybe even destroy reputations in real time. Backstage, Jasmine Crockett stood in front of a mirror. She adjusted her navy blazer, her fingers trembling slightly, though her face was calm. A young aide whispered updates to her: what Trump's team was doing, what the cameras would show, and what questions the moderator might begin with. Jasmine took a deep breath and nodded. "I didn't come here to perform," she said softly. "I came to reveal." Across the hall, Donald Trump leaned back in his chair, flipping through pages of notes and opposition research. His longtime advisor stood beside him, pointing at a few bolded sentences. "She'll try to corner you on race and justice," the advisor said. Trump smirked. "Let her try. I've got the facts that matter to my people." Outside the green rooms, the crowd began to chant, half-shouted, "Trump 2024!" while others clapped and cheered for Crockett. Security tightened their positions. Journalists whispered into their microphones as the moderator appeared on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," the moderator said, "tonight is not about rehearsed answers. It's about truth, challenge, and clarity. We bring you two of America's most controversial political voices, live and unscripted." Trump entered first. The room erupted. Some stood up to applaud. Others booed. He walked slowly, confidently, waving to his supporters, then sat down at the left end of the stage. Then came Jasmine Crockett. Her entrance was different. No hand-waving, no smiles, just purpose. She walked straight to her seat and looked Trump directly in the eyes. "Congresswoman Crockett," the moderator said. "President Trump, welcome." The first few questions were easy, focused on infrastructure and education. Both gave their usual answers. Trump boasted about his economic plans. Crockett talked about her grassroots work and fixing broken systems. But the tension was building. You could feel it in the way Trump tapped his fingers on the table, in the way Jasmine occasionally glanced at the crowd, picking up the emotions in their eyes. The moderator sensed it too, and then he dropped the match. "Mr. President, this question comes from a student. You often say you've done more for Black Americans than any president since Lincoln. Yet, states where you supported police leadership have seen rising cases of wrongful incarceration. How do you explain this contradiction?" Trump sat back as if prepared. "We've done more for the Black community than anyone gives us credit for. School choice, criminal justice reform, jobs. We've built opportunities." Jasmine leaned forward, listening. Her hands were folded, her expression unreadable. Then the moderator turned to her. "Congresswoman Crockett, your response?" She didn't smile. She didn't blink. "Mr. President," she began, her voice steady. "Justice isn't about numbers or photo ops. It's not something to hand out. It's not a campaign promise. It's lived. You say you've done a lot, but look at the lives still being destroyed. Look at the families torn apart by bad policy and unchecked power. You call this leadership? No. This is a performance, and the American people are done watching your show." The room fell silent. Trump raised his eyebrow. His jaw tightened. But he didn't respond yet. The camera zoomed in. Social media exploded with live reactions. A Trump vs. Crockett started trending in less than 5 minutes. But inside that auditorium, time felt frozen. Everyone leaned in a little closer. The real debate had just begun, and nobody, on that stage or in that crowd, had any idea how explosive the next hour was going to be. A room lingered a second longer than expected. It wasn't awkward. It was electric. Trump sat back, studying Jasmine with a gaze that mixed irritation and calculation. She had landed a solid opening hit, and the yow crowd knew it. But if anyone thought Donald Trump would back down, they didn't know him well. Trump leaned into the microphone. His voice was calm, but there was a sharp edge in every word. Congresswoman Crockett, let me say something very clearly. I've worked with people from every background. I've given more funding to HBCUs than any president in history. And I've reformed criminal justice in ways Democrats only talked about. So spare me the lecture. Some in the crowd applauded. Others remained tense, holding their breath. Jasmine didn't flinch. She was expecting the counterpunch. But what she didn't expect was the way Trump suddenly switched tone. You want to talk about families being torn apart? He said, now turning fully to her. Let's talk about the district you represent. Rising crime, failing schools. What are you doing about it, besides trying to go viral with lines like "America's tired of your show"? There were a few laughs from the audience. Trump's supporters clapped again. The moderator raised his hand, trying to bring things back under control. Let's not turn this into personal attacks, he began. But Jasmine interrupted, her voice calm but cutting. It becomes personal when the policies you make destroy real lives. And no, I don't just want to go viral, Mr. President. I want answers, real ones. Why do you always claim credit for justice while refusing to admit injustice when it's right in front of you? Trump's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he picked up a sheet of paper from the table and held it up. I brought numbers, Congresswoman, he said. Hard data. Economic growth under my administration. Jobby. Creation in minority communities. Record highs. But you don't care about that, do you? You care about the headline. You care about the moment. That's what this is for you. The tension in the room reached a new level. But Jasmine wasn't rattled. You're right, she said softly. I care about the moment. Because every moment a child grows up afraid of the police. Every moment a mother cries over a wrongful conviction. Every moment we allow division to win. That's a moment lost. A life lost. And yes, Mr. President, your numbers are real. But so are the people you failed to protect. The moderator turned to the audience. Let's take a question from the crowd. A young man, maybe a law student, stood up. His voice trembled slightly. My question is for both of you. How do we move forward if every conversation becomes a fight? Both Trump and Jasmine looked at him, and for the first time, Trump paused before answering. Good question, he said slowly. We argue because we care. We fight because we believe we're right. But moving forward means respecting the debate, not silencing it. The crowd gave a small, uncertain applause. Jasmine took her turn. Debate is part of democracy, but accountability is too. If we can't call out injustice, no matter who's in power, then we're not having a real conversation. We're just protecting egos. That statement hit harder than anyone expected. Trump looked at her for a moment longer, then leaned back in his chair. The moderator knew the room was on edge, and though they were only halfway through the event, it was clear this wasn't going to end with polite handshakes. It would end with someone walking away with more than just a win. It would be a public reckoning. And neither side looked ready to give an inch. The tension inside the auditorium at Howard University had reached a boiling point. The crowd had settled into a nervous silence, waiting for the next blow in what was no longer a town hall, but a televised showdown. Lights glared off polished, shoes and cameras hummed quietly. Viewers across the world were glued to screens, watching every flicker of expression on both faces. Jasmine Crockett adjusted her mic and leaned forward. Her voice was calm, but there was fire behind every syllable. "Mr. President," she said, "you say you respect the debate. But how many journalists have you called enemies? How many whistleblowers have you discredited? You can't call it healthy debate when you punish people for disagreeing." Trump didn't blink. "And how many people on your side shut down conversations the minute they hear something they don't like?" He snapped back. "Colleges cancel speakers. Media twists my words. If someone breathes conservative values, you call it hate speech." A mix of applause and boos broke out. The moderator stepped in again, but the stage was no longer his. Jasmine, and Trump had taken full control. Jasmine's expression stayed neutral. "This isn't about conservative or liberal. It's about truth. You used the presidency like a mirror, not a window. Everything had to reflect your image. And when it didn't, you broke it." Trump smirked, but there was no humor in it. "You're clever, Congresswoman, but clever doesn't mean right. You want to talk about broken mirrors? Look at the promises your party made to poor communities, then walked away from." Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She looked at the crowd, then back at Trump. "I'll own the failures on our side," she said softly, "but I won't let yours be erased just because you can talk louder." That line hit hard. Trump leaned back slightly, his jaw tight. For the first time that night, he seemed to hesitate. Across the country, newsrooms scrambled to update headlines. Crockett confronts Trump on national stage. Trump and Crockett clash in unfiltered debate. Then suddenly Trump changed gears. "I met with families, you know," he said, quieter now. "Mothers who lost sons to violence. Not just from crime, but from broken systems. I heard their pain. I didn't just tweet about it." Jasmine nodded slowly. "And did you listen, or just hear them long enough for a photo?" The moderator quickly turned to a new question submitted online. This one's from a voter in Michigan. They ask, "What's your single biggest regret?" "In office?" Trump raised his eyebrows. "Regret? That the media never gave us a fair shot. That no matter what we did, peace deals, vaccines, job growth, they only wanted the worst headline." Jasmine took a breath. "My regret is that too many Americans see each other as enemies, and that leaders, including you, helped that divide grow. Silence." Neither side cheered. It wasn't a zinger. It was something heavier, something real. Even Trump looked affected. Not visibly shaken, but thoughtful. Just for a second. Then he leaned forward again. "So what do you want? Jasmine, you want unity? Then why attack me like this on live TV?" She didn't hesitate. "Because I'm tired of pretending your version of leadership was normal. And because the people watching, especially young Black students in this room, deserve to see someone challenge power with truth." The crowd began to murmur again. Not boos, not applause, just quiet tension. Cameras zoomed in as Trump stared at her, his hands folded, tapping a slow rhythm against the desk. He finally said, "You're not afraid." "I'll give you that." She nodded. "Neither should the country be. Not of truth, not of justice, and not of you." The moderator stood now, clearly trying to regain control. "We'll take a short break," he said quickly. But no one moved. Not in the room, not at home. The real conversation had finally begun, and the next few minutes would decide more than just a debate. They would decide who truly owned the moment. The break was supposed to ease the tension, but backstage felt like a boiling kettle about to blow. Producers whispered urgently into earpieces. Aides hovered near the curtains, watching monitors like hawks. On one screen, Jasmine Crockett stood calmly, sipping water. On another, Donald Trump leaned back in his chair, speaking to his aide with tight, clipped words. Outside, the crowd didn't move. Phones were raised. No one was scrolling. They were frozen, holding their breath. Inside the green room, Jasmine's chief of staff, Lauren, leaned in. "You hit hard, but he's not rattled yet." "I don't need him rattled," Jasmine replied. "I need him exposed." Across the hallway, Trump's senior advisor, Dominic, stepped closer. "She's building credibility. If you fire back. Now, it better be something they haven't seen coming." Trump's gaze narrowed. "I've got something she hasn't heard. Something no one in that room has." Dominic blinked. "The file?" Trump didn't answer. He simply adjusted his cuffs and stood. Back on stage, the moderator welcomed viewers again. "Thank you for staying with us." We now move into the final segment, direct questions between the candidates. The spotlight hit center stage as both figures returned to their seats. Trump spoke first. "Congresswoman," he began, "you said I performed on the political stage, that I didn't lead, that I divided. But let me ask you, where were you when the FBI briefed Congress on the international deal involving your party and a foreign donor?" The room shifted. Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "That briefing was classified." Trump smirked. "Yet here we are." The audience murmured, confused but alert. On screen, viewers saw hashtags begin to trend. Trump files, Crockett clash, Howard Town Hall. Jasmine didn't flinch. "You're bringing up half-truths and insinuations because you're losing ground. There's no document, no evidence, no—" Trump raised a single hand. From his inside coat pocket, he pulled a white folder. The audience gasped. The moderator stood. "Mr. President, this wasn't cleared." Trump didn't stop. "This is from a legal channel. Redacted, but enough." He held it up but didn't open it. "I'm not here to smear. I'm here to remind you, Jasmine, that truth cuts both ways. You don't get to wear a halo when your side plays dirty, too." Jasmine leaned forward slowly. "You're bluffing." "No," Trump said. "I'm warning." The crowd was silent. Not out of confusion, but suspense. Jasmine took a breath. Her voice was sharp now, almost a whisper. "You just revealed something from a closed session on national TV. That's reckless. It may even be criminal." Trump's smirk faded slightly. "Then charge me," he said. That moment, those 3 words, lit the match. CNN and Fox both cut to anchors for analysis. BBC translated subtitles. On TikTok, teenagers reenacted the exchange. On X, journalists speculated, what's in the file? Is this the October surprise? But Jasmine wasn't done. "I came here for a debate," she said clearly. "Not blackmail, not stunts. You had a platform for 4 years. You had the power. And this? This is what you bring?" Trump's jaw flexed. "People like me don't get silence," Jasmine continued. "We get watched, labeled, followed. And still, I showed up to speak. That scares you more than anything." He leaned closer. "You want the truth? Then admit this. Your party left, working people behind. I just had the guts to say it." "You said a lot," Jasmine answered. "But leadership isn't noise. It's what's left when the noise fades." The audience rose, not all, but many. Applause spread like a slow wave. Trump sat back, eyes scanning the room. The moderator spoke softly. "That concludes our segment." But everyone knew the real story had just begun. Reporters rushed the side doors. Twitter was flooded with clips. Editorial boards paused presses. Jasmine turned to walk off stage, but Trump's voice stopped her. "This isn't over." She didn't look back. "I know," she said. "That's why I'm still here." The moment Jasmine stepped off the stage, her phone started vibrating nonstop. Messages from staff, reporters, and old colleagues flooded her screen. She didn't read any of them. Not yet. Lauren met her near the hallway. "The file, what's in it?" Jasmine didn't answer immediately. She stared at the blinking studio lights above as if trying to slow time. "It's not fake," Jasmine finally said. "But it's not what he made it sound like either. I saw a draft version months ago." Lauren's face tensed. "So he's spinning partial truth into something explosive." "Yes," Jasmine said, "and he did it on national TV." Meanwhile, inside the moderator's room, producers scrambled. Multiple news networks were now preparing emergency broadcasts. Legal analysts were brought in. There was talk of congressional reactions, ethics violations, and possible declassification. Breaches. CNN ran a lower third graphic. Trump hints at classified deal. Town hall turns nuclear. On Fox News, the tone was different. Trump drops bombshell on Crockett. Is she hiding something? And on social media, the audience had already taken sides. The clip of Trump holding the folder had gone viral, but another clip, Jasmine saying, "Leadership isn't noise," was gaining traction too, especially among young voters. Backstage, an NBC reporter approached Jasmine. "Congresswoman, do you plan to respond publicly to what the former president implied?" "I plan to respond fully," she said, "when I can show facts, not perform with props." Lauren leaned in again. He knew exactly when to drop it. He's playing offense now. "Then let him," Jasmine replied. "But we're not sitting still." On the other side of the building, Trump and Dominic sat in a private room. A laptop was open with headlines updating by the second. "She walked right into it," Dominic said. "They're scrambling." Trump didn't smile. "She's sharp. She'll try to flip this. I need more than one move." Dominic hesitated. "Are you thinking of releasing the second file?" Trump paused. "Not yet. Let her sweat." But Jasmine wasn't sweating. She was planning. That night at her hotel room, she finally opened her laptop. A secure video call was already waiting. 3 faces appeared: a former DOJ attorney, a federal whistleblower, and a data analyst from a watchdog group. "This is bigger than a file," Jasmine told them. "He's opening a door to secrets he can't control. If we're going to counter it, we need the truth, and the receipts." One of them nodded. "We've tracked the document's origin. It was cherry-picked from a closed session, yes, but there's more. The full version shows connections to a lobbying firm run by one of Trump's oldest allies." Jasmine leaned forward. "Can we prove that without violating the clearance rules?" "We're working on a leak route. Protected, legal, and media safe." Another analyst added, "There's another problem. The firm in question made deals, overseas, energy deals. Some of that money ended up in dark packs." Jasmine sat back in her chair, the weight of it sinking in. "Okay," she said slowly. "Then we don't fight his fire with fire. We fight it with light." The team looked confused. "We go public," Jasmine said, "not just to defend myself, but to show how deep this goes. I want a press conference ready in 36 hours. I'll lead it. No spin, just facts." Back in Trump's suite, Dominic watched as the hashtags began shifting again. Jasmine fights back. Truth not threats. Trump didn't speak. He just watched the screen silently. He had fired the first shot. But Jasmine had just loaded her next one. And this time, it was real. News vans lined the streets. Media crews from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and international outlets crowded the front of the National Press Club. Cameras were being tested, mics clipped, earpieces adjusted. Something big was coming, and everyone knew it. Inside a private room upstairs, Jasmine Crockett stood in front of a mirror. She wore a dark green blazer, no flashy jewelry, hair neatly tied back. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were sharp, focused. Lauren stepped in holding a folder. "We've got legal clearance. We can say everything in this file. No redactions. Needed." Jasmine took the folder, but didn't open it. "I already know what's in here," she said. "I lived it." Downstairs, reporters were speculating wildly. Was Jasmine about to resign? Was she going to admit something damaging? Or expose Trump? Fox's early coverage framed her as defensive and desperate. CNN's pre-show hinted at a possible counterattack that could redefine the election. Al Jazeera called it a political collision between raw power and rising intellect. At exactly 11 a.m., Jasmine stepped into the room. The crowd went silent. She stood at the podium, adjusted the mic, and looked straight into the lens of the lead camera. Yesterday, during a public dialogue, former President Donald Trump made a show of holding up a file. He suggested, without evidence, that it contained information compromising my integrity. Let me begin by saying this. I'm not afraid of files. I'm afraid of silence. The room was dead still. Jasmine held up the folder Lauren had given. This is the full file, the one he didn't show you, the complete version. And you'll see it in your email inboxes within the next 5 minutes. No black marks, no edits. Murmurs swept across the room. Reporters looked at their phones. Notifications began popping up. The file was being sent live. Jasmine continued, "What Mr. Trump didn't tell you is that the document he waved around was from a closed congressional inquiry into lobbying violations. What he also didn't say is that the inquiry wasn't about me, but about a firm tied to a man who donated $800,000 to his campaign." She paused. Let me repeat that. A company under investigation for international energy deals funneled money to a PAC that supported Donald Trump's re-election. Cameras clicked, hands shot up. But Jasmine didn't take questions yet. You want the truth? Here's more. One of the foreign energy contracts that firm secured involved a country under current U.S. sanctions. That deal was signed while Trump was still in office. She flipped a page. And yet, here I am, being called the threat. Reporters were now live tweeting every sentence. Donald Trump used a stage and a camera to manipulate facts. I'm using a press room and a document to reveal them. She finally looked around the room. I will not resign. I will not retreat. But if anyone in this room or across the country still has doubts, I invite you to do one thing. Read. She stepped back. A pause. Then thunderous applause erupted, not from the crowd but from the hallway, where staffers, interns, and young aides had gathered to watch. The networks instantly cut in with their own takes. CNN. Crockett goes nuclear with evidence. Fox. Crockett dodges. Trump's truth bomb with legal shield. BBC. A political reckoning live on American soil. Up in New York, Trump watched the press conference from a private golf club suite. He didn't say a word, just stared at the screen. Dominic sat beside him, uneasy. We didn't expect her to go that hard. Trump leaned back. She turned a counterpunch into a crusade. Dominic asked, "Do we push back again?" Trump's gaze narrowed. No, not yet. Let it boil. Meanwhile, back in D.C., Jasmine returned to her office. She shut the door behind her and exhaled, slowly. Lauren walked in. Emails are blowing up. Even some Republicans are saying they didn't know about the foreign deal. Jasmine nodded. That's because it was buried. We just unearthed it. Lauren hesitated. Do you think this was his real plan? To bait you into revealing it all? Jasmine looked out the window, her voice low but certain. No, he didn't. Think I'd have the nerve. But I've lived with silence before. Not anymore. Outside, the streets buzzed. Reporters packed up gear. Headlines raced across the world. But inside, Jasmine sat down at her desk. Because the storm had just begun. And she was ready. By the next morning, the entire country was spinning. Jasmine Crockett's press conference wasn't just news. It was a political earthquake. From cable networks to social media feeds, her name dominated every headline. Crockett Files was trending. Worldwide. Dozens of politicians were being asked to respond on air. Talk show hosts and legal analysts scrambled to explain what the document revealed. International outlets framed it as an unprecedented act of political retaliation backed by transparency. But something strange began to unfold behind the scenes. In a quiet corner of the Pentagon, 2 defense analysts examined names buried deep within the file Jasmine released. One of them, a gray-haired woman named Linda Wells, paused when she saw a signature at the bottom of a certain contract. "This can't be right," she whispered. Her colleague looked closer. "That's a classified energy export agreement. The name next to it. He was on Trump's transition team, wasn't he?" Linda picked up the secure line. "We need to flag this now. It's not just a media story anymore. This touches national security." Meanwhile, Jasmine sat in a secure briefing room inside the Capitol building. She wasn't alone. 2 House Intelligence Committee members had summoned her, not to investigate her, but to thank her. "You did what many of us didn't have the courage to do," said Representative Calderon. "And now we have enough leverage to launch a full probe into those back-channel energy deals." Jasmine nodded, composed, but cautious. "This can't turn into a political circus. I didn't release that file to score points. I did it to show how silence protects power." Outside, protests formed. In New York, Miami, and Austin, supporters rallied holding signs that read, "Truth has a name, Crockett," while others, angered Trump loyalists, chanted that it was a setup. At Mar-a-Lago, Trump paced in his private room, watching the coverage. Dominic sat silently across from him. "It's out of control. Even some GOP senators are calling for an ethics review." Trump's jaw tightened. "They're weak." She flipped the board, but the game isn't over. Dominic hesitated. "Should we go public again? Hold a press conference? Discredit her more directly?" Trump shook his head. "No. She gave them papers. I'll give them fear." He opened a drawer, pulled out an older file, something handwritten, marked with a date from 10 years ago. He didn't say what it contained, but his eyes told a story. Something dark, something buried. Back in Washington, Jasmine received a warning. A White House aide slipped her a sealed note during a security briefing. She opened it, and her eyes narrowed. Inside was a single sentence. "Stop digging. Not everything you uncover will protect you." She folded the paper slowly, calmly, then looked up at Lauren, her chief of staff. "They're scared. That means we're right where we need to be." Lauren looked uneasy. "But this isn't just politics anymore. If what we're touching now links to national security, to classified deals, we're not just taking on Trump. We're taking on everyone who kept it hidden." Jasmine took a deep breath. "Then let's bring it all out." That night, Jasmine appeared on 60 Minutes for a primetime interview. The host leaned in as the cameras rolled. "You've been accused of using sensitive government documents for political gain. What do you say to that?" Jasmine looked straight into the lens. "I say the American people have been used for decades. I didn't expose secrets. I exposed a pattern, one built on silence, intimidation, and media distraction." She paused. "And I'm just getting started." The next day, the Intelligence Committee launched a bipartisan investigation into offshore energy dealings linked to the Trump administration and 2 foreign governments. Subpoenas were issued, private emails leaked. Names began to surface, names that hadn't been seen in headlines since before Trump ever ran for office. But amid the chaos, Jasmine remained steady. She wasn't chasing power. She was chasing the truth. And now the world was watching. The storm she started couldn't be stopped. Not by threats, not by files, not by silence. Because in a system built to silence people like her, she had become the loudest voice, and she wasn't backing down.